Welcome, everyone, to Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, things a little better in Leafland today versus a week ago.
I would say a lot better, Michael. Two in a row. The big boys finally, starting to score some goals, and I think everybody's relaxing a little bit, taking it easy, and going, "Okay, we're all right. We're all right." But you know
Yeah.
what? There's a lot of season left yet.
Well, I was at the game last night. My son Ryan pointed out, who I went to the game with, and my granddaughter, by the way, 3 generations of Wilsons at the game last night. So that was a first for us. But as Ryan pointed out to me, it was probably the longest I've ever gone between seeing a live Leafs game since probably as a teenager. So it was quite something being back in the building. Now, before we get into the team specifics, it's November. Man, it's gone by fast already. And in recent years, regarding men's health awareness has become known as Movember. Now, you've launched a project of
Hmm.
your own, and from the looks of the growth on your map, it looks like it's already in process. So, why don't you talk about that?
Well, you know what? It's my grandfather, my father's father, passed away from prostate cancer. My father didn't have prostate cancer, but he had a lot of problems with his prostate. So it's something that's very, very close to me, and I routinely every single year get mine checked to make sure that nothing happens. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get in there and try to help out and raise some money. So people can go on my Instagram, and the link is there where they can donate money. And 12 people that donate money will be drawn out randomly and will receive a soft cover Catch 22 book of mine signed and sent out to them. So it's you know what? Hopefully, my goal is $2,200. Hopefully, it goes a little higher than that, and we can help out men that are having those problems.
Now, what's your give your no? Okay, so now you'll personalize it too, I assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
And what's
absolutely.
your now? Give your what? Where should they go? Like what site should they use? Just on your Instagram, or should they go to your webpage, or what should they do?
No, on Instagram, and the link is there for them to donate money. And
So it's Rick Vive. Okay. So for Instagram is Rick Vive.
yep.
So folks out
Hmm.
there, so go to Rick Vive, throw a couple bucks in there, and he'll get you a book. You get it, go in the draw for a book, and you get one personalized and signed to you. And it's a good book. It's worth a read too. So a great project there, Squid, and hopefully
Yeah.
people will respond. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it, and uh, unfortunately, it's all gray now what I'm growing. But
well, I can see it through here. You're 100 miles away from me, and I can still see it very clear on the screen. So it's working, Squid. Um, What did you like about last night's game overall, considering Vegas was missing 5 key players, of course, but a win is still a win, and at this point, it was sorely needed.
well, I think the biggest thing is the power play was a little bit better. I think they scored a couple of
Yeah.
power play goals. Matthews got two. Nylander got one. I mean, the big boys obviously they had to start producing, and finally, last night they all did, and they all had real good games. Marner scored as well, and I mean, yeah, you look at it and you go, okay, well, if Vegas had their full lineup, it might have been a little bit more challenging, but nonetheless, it's still a win, and they just got to keep going like that, and hope that every team they play are missing 4 or 5 guys.
Well, that'd be a nice thing, wouldn't it? Especially tomorrow night with Tampa coming in. It would be, well, Kucherov's out of the lineup, so that's a start anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Now let's
but
talk about the lightning rod that's been the target for the last while, Mitch Marner. Now, Mitch Marner looked like Mitch Marner last night. I mean, that goal he scored was a reminder for all those naysayers and the media guys who've been on him pretty hard of the elite skills this kid possesses. Not many players at any level could execute that slick move.
no, you don't see that type of move very often. only by very few guys in the National Hockey League, and he's one of them. And there's no question that his skill level is at a different level than most of the players in the league. However, he's going to have to continue to play that way,
Yep.
for regularly, and you can't go 4 or 5 games and not get any points and that sort of thing. Otherwise, the pressure is going to be back on him, and I'm not sure. When things are going great, Mitch Marner is one of the better players in the league, no question. But when things aren't going good, you can tell that the pressure gets to him a little bit. So he's got to continue to perform like that, and then the pressure won't be on him, and he'll perform just as well as he has in the past years.
Well, I mean, it's no secret as they go, the Leafs go. And what I liked about his game last night was he was moving his feet with purpose. By that, I mean, in the
Yep.
last few games, he was circling around, but he was almost like a traffic cop waving the play away from him. Last night, he wanted the puck, hung on to it. He was creative with it. And with a little more luck, he could add a few more. That's a breakthrough for him confidence wise that I think he's going to obviously elevate his game off of.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to think that that's obviously is going to help. There's no question. I mean, he was very tentative the way he was playing early in the
Yes.
season. The last few games, he's shown a little bit more of what he was doing in past years, and if he keeps playing like that, and Matthews keeps scoring, and I mean, they got a hell of a team. I mean, let's if everybody's firing on all cylinders, that's a pretty good hockey club. And the only thing again is the defense, or not just the defense, but them as a defensive team in their own zone sometimes get confused and give up good scoring opportunities. But other than that, I mean, if you got the puck half the night or 3/4 of the night, then you're likely going to win the hockey game.
Well, again, that's the thing about it. I mean, ironically enough, or not ironically enough, probably the positive side of it was Matthews was dialed in right from puck drop last night. You could see. I mean, he was strong on both ends of the ice,
Yep.
which is critical. But like any good player, the guys around him are what matter. Bunting and Nylander were both getting open, moving the puck, keeping the opposition on as a result. And witness Nylander's breaker the first 10 seconds into the game, and he would score on his same play late in the third period. They all have to be moving to let these guys execute their skill. And I mean, it sounds very simple, but it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it does sound simple, Mike, but you're right. It is difficult. But the power play, I liked the power play last night because they were moving bodies and they were moving the puck around a lot quicker and opening up those seams, cross ice seams, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, if their power play is going to be potent, that's the way they got to play it. And they can't be static, standing still, just moving the puck around. They got to move bodies, and they're very good at it when they start moving around. I mean, that puck zips around, bodies are moving, and penalty killers can't stop them.
So now you touched on it briefly, but what didn't you like about last night's game now? I mean, people out there are going to be thinking only Maple Leaf fans could find fault in a dominating 4-0 win. But with the core of Vegas's teams missing, as we've already mentioned at the top of the show, it is kind of relevant that there were some holes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought overall, I thought they played a pretty strong game from start to finish. I really did. I didn't see any weak things, coming out. I thought they played pretty good in their own zone last night as a team, which, typically sometimes they have some problems in their own zone. But last night they didn't. I mean, yeah, okay, Vegas was missing 5 of their best players. I mean, yeah, we got to acknowledge that. But nonetheless, they took advantage of that and they went out and they played a real solid game from start to finish. They didn't let up. They kept coming at Vegas and they outshot them, they outplayed them. And that's what they have to do. I mean, whether they're missing players or not, they got to play that way against every team they play.
Well, one of the guys I wanted to talk about is Nick Ritchie. He looks absolutely lost on the ice at this moment. I mean, I feel for him. He finished his tech check twice on one shift in the third period, but for most of the part, he looked like a guy who was just trying to stay out of the way. That's a guy afraid to make a mistake. because he's afraid he's going to come. I mean, he's gone from number one line to the fourth line. So I mean, the next stop is sitting with me and Ryan up in the 300 section. That said, we've mentioned on the show that Keefe must let these guys play, give them their 20 games, then reevaluate. We're halfway to that number already, and so far it's not been great for him.
No, it hasn't. And at $3.5 million, that's a lot of money for a guy on the fourth line who's not producing either. So, I mean, there's something's got to give. Either he's got to start producing and playing a little bit better, or something has to happen. I mean, it's going to be pretty difficult to move a guy like that at $3.5 million when he's not producing. But or 2.5. Sorry, yeah, I thought it was 3.5. No, that's Kerfoot's at 3.5, I believe. Yeah. But he's playing well, Kerfoot, right now on the left side, and but Richie's got to get his game going, and if he doesn't, I mean, something's going to have to happen because he's not producing. He's not. He looks like he's lost out there. He just, I don't know what it is. It's like, well, maybe his foot speed is finally catching up to him.
Well, no, I mean, that's a good point. But he did score 15 goals last year playing for Bruins, and he played with Krejci. So, I mean, it's not like, he's playing with good players here, too. So it's not like he's lacking in ability with the guys who are around him. But it's just this confidence thing that we just discussed with Marner and Matthews. But I would suggest that he will get a few more games. I hope they don't do this. Like, they have to waive him. But if they do and he goes to Marlies, maybe gets his confidence back, scoring a little bit. But what I could see this doing is this open a door for Josh Husang. But so don't forget, don't look now, but he's got 5 goals in 6 games. This Notre Dame grad, Alex Steves, he was very impressive in camp. He's back after the shoulder injury. He scored a couple goals in a couple of games. So there's a couple guys down there nipping at their heels. So he's got to be feeling that. So I hope that he does get an opportunity to play because you do want that big body in the lineup if he can use it. But if he can't, they've got to move on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you got to give him another 10 games minimum, and maybe use him a little bit more, move him up the lineup if you can, if he starts to play a little bit better, and give him that opportunity to play with some of the better players. But then again, that's up to him and how he plays. If he continues to play the way he's playing, well, then you got to leave him on the fourth line. I mean, you can't move him up. But if he starts playing a little bit better, maybe give him a little cookie there and move him up a little bit with a couple of better players and see what happens. And, give him 10 more games, 12 more games. If things stay the same, something's got to give.
Well, here's next one for you. Pierre Engvall. Squid, maybe you or maybe Jason Spez, a couple vets, can sit him down. Point out, not many guys in this league have his size, speed, shot, strength when he wants to apply them. He's one of these guys that must drive the coaches nuts. He's lights out one game, unnoticeable the next. Consistency is the toughest hill to climb to hold a regular spot in the National Hockey League, as you're very well aware. You think that would be obvious, but some guys just can't seem to process that reality. Now, he's an anomaly just as far as his play goes up and down. Like last night, you just don't notice him as much as you should and he's got all the tools.
Yeah, he certainly does. I mean, he's not a prolific goal scorer. I mean, he's not going to score you 30 goals or anything like that. But he's got to step up his game, check a little bit better, kill penalties. He's a very good penalty killer when he's playing well. He can chip in probably 15 goals a year, maybe even 20 if he could ever start putting the puck in the net. He gets enough chances. He can't score. But I think you're right. It's more the inconsistency from game to game. Looks great one game and then disappears for 2, then comes back and plays 2 great games, disappears for another game or 2. That's got to change, and he's got to be consistent game in and game out. And if he ever gets to that level where he's consistent every single game, then you can count on him. But right now, I don't know. I like the way he plays. I really do when he's playing well. and he can ski. I mean, he can do everything really. I mean, but again, consistency. You're right, Mike, and that is probably the hardest thing for NHL players over an 82 game schedule is to be consistent. And right now, he's not.
So let's go with that train of thought. Squid, speak to how difficult it really is to stay mentally prepared, focused game in and game out. It really, we had touched on this already earlier. It's not as easy as it all looks. I mean, how would you, as an example, stay dialed in, even if you didn't really feel it some games or went a few games without scoring?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe that you can go out and get the job done. And then, of course, you got to have the coach believe in you and put you out on the ice in key situations. But I think the biggest thing is just believing in yourself and believing that you can go out and get the job done, game in and game out. Hey, let's face it, you're not going to feel good every game. You're not gonna have it every game, but at least contribute in one way or another. Like, I mean, if I'm out there and I'm not feeling it, and I know that, okay, I'm not going to get a whole lot of scoring chances tonight, the way the other team's checking me or whatever, well, then I got to go out and play a physical game and play good defensive hockey. So you got to contribute in one way or another. And if you're doing that game in and game out, the one thing that I always looked at was, okay, if I was happy with the way I was playing, and my teammates were happy with the way I was playing, and my coach was happy with the way I was playing, that's all I had to worry about. I didn't care what the fans thought, or the general manager, or the owner, or anybody. It was me, my teammates, and my coach. And that's all that mattered, really.
That's perfectly well said, and you can see that that's just the thing that seems to be lacking. And it brings us to this other guy, by the way, who's not in the lineup right now, is Mikheyev, Ilya Mikheyev. His value to this team is noticeable with him out of the lineup. His agent must be licking his chops a little bit as he sits along and he comes up a free agent this summer. He may not have the greatest hands, but he chases pucks down better than anybody in his team. He brings that intensity every game, and his feet are always moving, and the third line sorely misses him.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that. I mean, he's a pretty strong player. He plays a pretty physical game. He gets in. Yeah, that third line would be so much better with him on the left side. I mean, in a checking role, shutting down other teams. Not to mention the fact that he's probably maybe their best penalty killer as well. So when you look at that, I mean, that's a big thing for them too. So hopefully he gets back, sooner rather than later, and starts to help out that third line.
So let's go to a couple of the D-men we've been looking at. Let's start with the youngest guy, Timothy Liljegren. We've said on some of the forwards, let him play and let's see what's there. So let him play for. I have no problem with him playing the next little while. Steve take a little longer to develop, as we all know, and he needs minutes before determining his next step. But a couple of things that seem to stand out to me that I noticed last night, I've noticed throughout this year, is number one, like Sandin, he gets pushed off the puck along with body contact too easy. So he must get stronger for number one. And that'll come, I guess, with age, but he's got to get stronger. And two, and this is the iffy one, he seems to touch slow reacting to players who go wide on him or anything to the perimeter. Not sure whether it is a case of him not being fast enough or his body setup needs to adapt to the quicker pace of the NHL versus the AHL. Therefore, he needs more time. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think time is probably the best thing for him. And it's funny because I remember Dion Phaneuf when he played in Toronto. And I remember him in Calgary. He always played his offside. But when he came to Toronto, they put him on the left side. And then I started watching, and I noticed that when players were going wide on him and they'd have a step on him, he turned to the inside. So he'd lose another step on those guys. So Sandin's just got to learn a little bit how to gap control and how to turn and push his guy into the corner instead of letting him get to the net. And I think, again, Mike, we've talked about this ad nauseum, is that these guys just need to play and learn what it takes to play in the National Hockey League as a defenseman. And I mean, unless they get that opportunity, they're never going to know, really, when you think about it.
Well, like our good old friend Axelrod once said, patience. We need a little patience. So fans, we have to stick with that possibly that way. Let's our last guy we want to talk about today. Jake Muzzin. It appears to me that watching him so far this year, his game seems a little bit off. Played over 23 minutes last night, most in the team, but he looked to be laboring most of the evening, and it stood out a little bit. Now, you can get away with that against the shorthanded Knights, but with the Cup champs coming in tomorrow, it may stand a little more. But is it maybe he's playing hurt? But does he look a little bit off to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, he does. But again, I mean, you look at Muzzin, and I think you got to look at the big picture. This guy's played a lot of hockey in
Yes.
his career so far. I mean, with LA and then with Toronto, he's always played big minutes. He plays a physical game. I'm sure he's never 100% healthy. I mean, he's probably got something nagging every time he steps on the ice, and you have to expect that he's going to be off on certain nights. But when it comes down to it, he's a good leader. He's won cups. He knows what it takes, and I think that he'll get out of that. And I think he'll start to realize that maybe I can't get involved in the offense as much. I got to stay back a little bit and protect our own end. And but again, the way he plays, there's just you can't stay 100% healthy. It's not possible.
Well, it's critical why Justin Hall has to get back in the lineup. The big body back there to take some of the heat off of him. While the kids learn to
Mm-hmm.
play the game, Lilligren and Sandin, it can't be all on the veterans. And Brody's playing very well, I noticed. And Riley's playing his steady self, although he seems to be staying back a
Yeah.
little bit more, trying to play a little more defensive. He's not jumping into the play as much as normal. But I think once the team starts gaining that better feel, you'll see that all start kicking in. So it's critical because they're very thin on the D that they get Hall back playing up to standard quick sooner than later.
Well, and who knows when he's going to get back in the lineup? Because I mean, if listening to Sheldon in his interviews, I mean, he said, "Hey, these guys are getting the job done, and
Yep.
Hall's just going to have to wait his turn." And and I understand that as a coach. When you're winning, you don't want to change your lineup. I mean, and right now Hall's kind of the odd man out right now, and Dermott as well. And they're just going to have to be patient and wait until somebody falters a little bit, one of the kids maybe, and they get back in the lineup. But I would love to see Hall back in there regardless, because he's a
Yep.
big body. He plays a physical game. He clears the front of the net pretty well. And he moves the puck well too. I mean, he's a pretty steady defenseman that, you're not going to get a whole lot of offense out of him, but you're going to get real good defense out of him.
Well, he can lug
He
the puck
blocks
too.
shots. Yeah, and he blocks shots. I mean, he does it all.
Yep, and he lugs it well. So I mean, they're missing that, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get him back sooner or later. Well, Squid, I think it's safe to say this week's theme has been all about confidence. A very
Yep.
misunderstood, loving, hateful, and cruel at times word. So we'll base the quote of the week around that. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Confidence comes not from always being right, but from not fearing to be wrong. Let me say that again. Confidence comes from not always being right, but from not feeling to be wrong, fearing to be wrong.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, and I mean, you know what? It goes back to what you said earlier, Mike, about playing in the National Hockey League. You have to think that way, because if you're worried about failing, then you're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
But if you're confident and go out there every night thinking, okay, I can play at this level and I can be consistent and I can go out and do the job night in and night out, then it's going to happen. But if you're thinking, oh wow, what if I fail tonight? What if I don't play well? Well, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and in today's world of win now, and you start looking at a team a couple subway stops away, and a few of the guys are putting numbers up. You're looking over your shoulder. You can't be doing that. You got to just control what you control. I know it's an old cliche, but that's really all you can do.
Yeah, you can't do any more than that. I mean, things are just not going to go the way you want them to every single night. And when that happens, then you just gotta. It's funny watching the ball game last night,
Yeah,
and they were talking about relief pitchers, and I forget who it was, Rolly Fingers or somebody said, the best thing for a reliever is you got to have a short memory, and you know what? It's no different as a
absolutely.
hockey player. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you didn't have a good game on Tuesday, you're going back at it Thursday, so you better have a short memory and put that stuff aside and get ready and prepare yourself for the next one.
Well, the next one's less than 24 hours away. Actually, just a little over 24 hours away,
Yeah.
25 hours away. So we'll have a good test for that we'll see within the next few days. Um, that's our show for this week, folks. Thanks for listening. Back same time, same place next week, next Wednesday it is. Don't forget to tune into our weekly episode of Squid and the Ultimate Elite Fan podcast. It's featuring Bernie Nichols this week, a better than a point a game player, 1,209 points in 1,127 games, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. We discuss all that
Yeah.
and more on the show. Drops Friday at 6 o'clock. Enjoy this game this week, folks, and we'll talk to you next week.